to you. It's 10 o'clock, and I'm Tim Harris, and that means it's time for 10 with Tim. We are going verse by verse through the book of Daniel. We've just gotten started, so if you are new, you are not far behind. Just jump right in with us. Today, we're starting chapter 2, verses 1 to 23. Yesterday, we were talking about how Daniel and a large group of boys have been taken hostage, quasi-hostage, from the land of Judah. They were the best, the brightest, the smartest, the most physically fit. They were taken into the court of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon there for an extensive re-education, reprogramming curriculum of education so that they can become good Babylonian leaders. Most of those boys we never hear from. There's no story to tell because they just fall right in line. They assimilate to the culture. They turn their backs on the God of their parents. They accept the Babylonian gods and they move forward as Babylonians. But there are four: Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, who refuse to go along with the program. We found out at the end of chapter 1 that even though they were eating only vegetables, drinking only water, God was blessing them. God gave them intellect. God gave them physical health and stamina. God caused them to rise head and shoulders above all the other men, all the other boys in that program. So at the end of that time, they were promoted and they found favor in the eyes of everyone, including King Nebuchadnezzar. That was sort of the summary statement. Now, chapter 2 picks up in verse 1 with a little bit of a timestamp here. It says it's the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Scholars struggle with how to put that timeline together. If the program itself lasted 3 years, then one way or the other, this is happening while Daniel and the boys are still in something of that program. If again, it lasted 3 years, this is the second year of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign. So however you put that together, this is still really early and probably a story that happened while they were still in that early training. So here's how it goes. King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. It's a disturbing dream. He is determined to find out what it means. Now, in the ancient Babylonian religion and culture, dreams were considered to be important omens or signs of what is going to happen or events that are otherwise hidden. And so King Nebuchadnezzar has in his court a large resource of wise men. These are technically diviners. When we say wise men, none of them in any way claim to receive revelation from the gods. That's not how it works in ancient Babylon. They read signs. They have books and books on how to interpret dreams, but the gods don't reveal the dreams to them. They hear the dream, and then they can consult their books, consult their wisdom, and somehow, interpret the signs. They read sheep liver. I'm not making that up. They will look at animal livers. They will pay attention to abnormal births. They will look at signs in the stars in the sky and that sort of thing. They read omens. They are diviners, but they don't receive revelation. That's not anything they've claimed to do. So what Nebuchadnezzar demands here is something that's absolutely unprecedented in the Babylonian culture and court. He demands to know what his dream means. Now, that's not out of line, but in the context of demanding to know the interpretation of his dream, he wants the wise men, to tell him the dream too. So in other words, they have to receive a revelation of the dream and then give the interpretation to the king. And that's far beyond anything that any of them have been schooled to do. Again, they're diviners. They don't receive revelation. And so, they're just stuck. And they tell the king that, king, there's nobody, nobody. Only the gods, this is what they say, only the gods could reveal your dream, and none of them are walking around, which is just an amazing statement. And what's Nebuchadnezzar doing? Some scholars say that he's an old man and he's about half crazy. We'll talk about that later. That probably it's kind of like he wakes up thinking, man, I had a dream last night, man. I remember it was a terrible dream, but I don't remember the dream. So maybe King Nebuchadnezzar, had a dream, knows he had a dream, thinks it was probably a weird dream, but doesn't really remember the dream. So he wants him to tell him like the dream. Oh yeah. And then, tell him what the dream means too. I think that's funny, but I don't really believe that that's the case. I think King Nebuchadnezzar did not come to play. I think that the dream itself is something that comes from something really deep in him, and he is rather serious about finding out what it means. And he knows the wisdom of the wise around him. He knows they could come in and tell him anything. It's like the horoscope that used to be in the newspaper. I don't know where you find it now. Chinese restaurant menus, that sort of thing. You ever read your horoscope? And, I have. I read it, and I'll read it and think, well, my goodness, that sounds just like me. My goodness, that's dead on. Oh, no, wait, that's not Pisces. That's Sagittarius. Like I read the wrong one. And it turns out any one of them I read, I can make it sound like it fits my life, because it's all stupid. If you want it to fit, you can make it fit. And that's the point. But King Nebuchadnezzar's done with that kind of mess. He doesn't want that. I want you coming in just telling me something and I could just have to believe it, So he's testing their integrity, right? He's testing, your interpretation. I don't really know if that's true or not. But if you tell me something I know, which is my dream, then I'll know if your interpretation is true, Like the king has done some stupid things, but this is a smart thing, But it also reveals the total ignorance and ineptitude of all of his wise men. And finally he says, I'm tired of fooling with y'all's mess. If y'all can't tell me my dream and the interpretation, I'm going to kill every one of you. And that's what he does. He orders them killed. Who needs wise people who are dumb? Get rid of them. Get rid of them. Problem is, Daniel and Hananiah and Azariah and Mishael, our 4 Hebrew heroes, man, they're now considered the wise men. It's a big number, but Nebuchadnezzar was mad at all of them. So as it turns out, Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, he comes to kill Daniel. Now, I'm just telling you, I don't know what it is Daniel has. I know it's the Spirit of God, but I got the Spirit of God. But, man, I don't have what Daniel has. In every situation, Daniel is absolutely the paradigm of wisdom and cool. This dude is better than Fonzie. Because Daniel doesn't panic. The guy is here to kill him. Daniel said, what's going on? And Arioch explains. King wants to know his dream and the interpretation, but apparently all you wise guys ain't wise enough. And Daniel says, could you give me till morning? He asks for a little bit of time. And then what does he do? He goes back to his 3, buddies, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, and says, hey, dude, y'all got to pray. It's serious. King is crazy, but we need to go to him with the dream and the interpretation. And you see, Daniel knows enough about his God to know that God can do this. There's nothing God can't do. So again, this is just typical of the book of Daniel. In every situation, Daniel is going to be completely wise. He does not freak out. He does not panic. He just simply knows exactly what to say, how to say it in the right moment. Daniel is cool. And he is wise, right? And so that night, God answers the prayer of Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, because of course there is a God who dwells among his people. It's Daniel's God, right? And so then Daniel has this amazing, again, second time in the one chapter he prays. In the morning after he receives the revelation from God, he prays this amazing psalm, this song of praise, and it's beautiful. He praises God for basically 2 things, right? God's power and God's wisdom. God controls the course of world events. King Nebuchadnezzar, man, he's high on his horse. He thinks he's some strong king, but he is nothing. He is only what God permits him to be. God is in control. You see, this is the reminder all through the book of Daniel. Because if you've ever been in a Daniel-like situation, and I'm telling you, despite Daniel's faith, outward appearances would not suggest that God is in control. It looks like Nebuchadnezzar's got a whole lot of power, but Daniel sees right through that. God is in control. God is all powerful. God is still on the throne. So he says, boys, let's pray. Let's go to God. We know where the power is. We know where the power comes from. We know where the wisdom comes from. And then when God comes through, Daniel just praises his God. God who controls the course of world events. God who gives wisdom to the wise. God who reveals deep and mysterious things. I love that. So we pick up there tomorrow, chapter 24. Daniel's going to go to the king, tell him the dream, tell him the interpretation. I mean, Daniel is an amazing, amazing prophet and man of God. He shows you how to live in a world that is crazy and toxic and turned up against the God who we serve. Daniel can show you how to live in the world if you pay attention to this man's wisdom. That's what we'll pick up tomorrow. Chapter 2, verses 24 to 49. Chapter 2, verses 24 to 49. Have a great Thursday, y'all. It's going to get bad weather today. I got my jacket on. I'm just accepting the fact that my great summer is over, and all you fall and winter lovers, it's your time. So I had my time. This is your time. We'll all enjoy every single day that God makes and gives us, because it's all a gift, right? I love you guys. Have a good Thursday. I'll see you in the morning, 10 o'clock. Lord